so challenging. Passover is not just an opportunity to get rid of the chametz, the things that make us arrogant, the things that distract us in our lives, but it's also an opportunity to kind of reflect about the inner message of the actual holiday. This is part two of a series on understanding Jewish holidays. Um, so we're going to speak about Passover today. Now, we know that the Jewish calendar is broken up into different sections of the year. There are some wise sages that have pointed out that if you look closer at all Jewish holidays, you'll notice that they have a certain theme. Jewish holidays are broken into two sections: those that are rabbinic and those that are from the Torah itself, which means it's divine. So divine laws or divine holidays are mentioned in the Torah. Now, what they all have in common is that they begin from the month of Nisan, which is the month we're in right now, the month of Passover, and they keep moving all the way down towards Sukkot. All of those holidays come out during the spring months, the beginning of the spring, and kind of like the beginning of the fall, which means that the weather is amazing, right? Whereas the rabbinical holidays, Hanukkah happens in the dead of winter, Purim at the towards the end of winter. There's an interesting kind of thing to pay attention that when God gives us holidays, it's tied into and tethered into the nature of the actual weather, the weather patterns, the system that we use to determine when these different seasons are constantly changing. So now, what's interesting is that Passover is clearly tied into this idea, this theme of redemption. And it's not an accident that I don't believe it's an accident, because not only is the redemption taking place at a time of the year where the world is beginning to re-emerge from the darkness, right? If the winter was all about, darkness and no life, then this month of Nisan is the beginning of the emergence of life. A couple of months ago, we spoke about Tu B'Shvat, the idea that the trees were beginning to re-emerge from their slumber. And now is a time when we're going to start seeing the leaves beginning to bloom. I'm not sure about you, but yesterday I had the privilege of walking through Central Park with Rabbi Mizrahi, and it was a lot of fun. And we got to schmooze a little bit, some rabbinical conversations, and just enjoying nature. And it was beautiful outside. I'm not sure if you had a chance to spend some time outside. I know everyone's busy cleaning, but please, please take a break, go out there and take everything in. The world is changing. There's no question about it. Okay. So if Passover is a time where we celebrate our liberation, right, then why is it that we have this command that every single Jew is tasked with seeing themselves as if they were liberated from Egypt? Meaning, if liberation already happened, why do I got to keep celebrating that liberation? Isn't being liberated once enough? You could argue that the implication over here is that freedom was not actually achieved. That once you get your freedom, that's all you need. But what we're really saying is that this freedom requires a constant guarding, that every day and every moment carries its own equivalent to being enslaved in Egypt, and which is a power to undermine the freedom of our mind, the freedom of being able to speak, to share, to think freely for ourselves. And I think that the greatest threat that we all have when we're dealing with, our own freedom is the ourselves. We are able to undermine our own individual freedom because of our own thinking. And I think it's the conviction that certain achievements are beyond us, that we're stuck, that like I can never be anything more. Um, Now there's this ridiculous belief that I was born into a certain reality, that I was born into a certain family. These are my circumstances. I can't change them. I am who I am, and that's it. I'm stuck. Right? That is a form of slavery. Okay. Um, when you believe that there are set bars around yourself, when you believe that you are in prison, okay, that's an illusion. And therefore, Passover is about an ongoing process of self-liberation. Okay, it's the holiday, its practices, its symbols of struggle that is constantly renewed within the Jew to create freedom, which is to live out our eternal mission in this world. That's what we're here for, to be free, to be individuals that are able to come ahead and accomplish whatever it is that we're meant to accomplish in this world. That is what Passover is about. So when we talk about this notion of time, we have to be mindful that each time in the holiday itself is there to express a very unique, special aspect of mental, spiritual achievement. How does that happen? Okay, so there's actually a debate amongst the rabbis as to when the world was actually created. It's a machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Eliezer. These two different sages have this debate as to did God create the world in the month of Nisan, which is the month we're in right now. Technically speaking, this is month number 1 in the Jewish calendar, which is kind of confusing because you also have a holiday called Rosh Hashanah, which is the beginning of the year. Now, technically speaking, Rosh Hashanah is the 6th month of the Jewish calendar, which is kind of strange. It's the beginning of the year. Why wouldn't it be the first month of the Jewish calendar? So, two different opinions. One opinion states that no, that God had the thought of creating the world in the month of Elul or Tishrei. And in that month, God's thoughts are like action, and therefore something was started. But the actual world was actually created. Its physical material space that we enjoy was created in the month of Nisan, the month of liberation and freedom. That's the month that we're in right now. Okay, there's two different ideas to when we started. There's the potential of when the world was created, and then there's the actualization, the actual time that the world itself was created. These are the two different opinions as to how we understand the Jewish calendar, meaning they both represent a time of creation, but different kinds of creation. But Nisan, the month we're in right now, represents the actual physical manifestation of time. Okay. Now, remember, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. And the first command that we received as Jews when we left Egypt is HaChodesh Zelechem. And the question that everyone wants to know is, why is that the first of the commands that the Jewish people receive? It doesn't make any sense. And as a matter of fact, Rashi says that if you were going to go ahead and start the Torah, it should have just started from HaChodesh Zelechem. Start from that first mitzvah, because the Torah itself is a book of mitzvot. Listen to this idea. Okay, it's a very powerful idea. It's so relevant to us today, especially as COVID is about to completely dissipate and fly away, and we have our ability of actually going out and being truly free again. So there are several views of time for Jews. There's what we call the solar calendar, and there's something called the lunar calendar. The solar calendar is very clear. There are 365 days in the year. That's how long it takes for the Earth to revolve around the sun. And there's a lunar calendar. Anyone know how long it takes the moon to revolve around the Earth? It takes 355 days. So you have almost a 10-day gap, which is why every couple of years we have something called a leap year, or Shana Me'uberet, to make up the time. Now the question is, why do we need these two different views of time? Isn't it enough to have one view of time? Like, why can't we just use the sun? Why can't we just use the moon? Why do we need both? So the truth is that the Earth revolving around the sun helps us understand the seasons. The Earth revolving around the moon helps us understand the holidays itself. Because the Earth is closer to the moon gives me a more accurate reading of when the actual holidays begin. But the sun is what we use to tell basic time. So we use both systems. They're both important, different perspectives. Now, what does each system teach us? This is the lesson for today. The sun represents the unchanging reality of time, always marching forward, marching nonstop, moving forward, doing the same thing, monotonous march of time, going through time over and over again, same thing. I'll give you an example of this. When you wake up in the morning, where do you find the sun? Oh, I know exactly where it is. It rises in the east. And in the afternoon, where do you find the sun? Oh, it's very clear. I find the sun straight up in the middle of the sky, right? It's right above me. And in the evening, where do you find the sun? In the west, where it sets. Amazing. The sun is super predictable. The sun is very, very clear, unchanging, does the same thing over and over again. Now, if I were to ask you tonight, where would I find the moon? In the east, the west, the south, north, where would you tell me? And the answer is you probably don't even know. We never know where the moon is. The moon is, I mean, there is a way of knowing, but most people don't know where the moon is because the moon itself is very, very unpredictable. So the The moon represents something else. The moon represents hitchadshut. The moon represents the newness of time, whereas the sun represents the repetitive nature of time. The word for time is the word for the sun for the year is shana. Okay, shana are things that don't shoneh, they don't change. They're always exactly the same. Whereas the word chodesh, the month, the word for the month in Hebrew comes from the same word as chidush, as this renewal. The Jews were living in Egypt where they worshiped the sun. Okay, the sun represents the caste system. Things don't change. You're born a slave, you are a slave. You're born poor, you are poor. You're born a certain way, you can never change. You are who you are through and through. You can never be anything different. And we reject that idea completely. This is exactly what Passover is here to remind us, that there's something new. Spring cleaning isn't just about getting rid of the chametz in your home. It's about getting the chametz in our lives, the things that bloat us up, the arrogance of, oh, I got this, I know this, I'm okay, I could figure this out, I don't need you to tell me, I'm okay with it, I got it. It's the same thing over and over again. Nothing ever changes. What's the point of trying if everything that happens is exactly the same over and over again? So the month, the first mitzvah of HaChodesh Zelachem, the new month, is the constant reminder that every single month is a new opportunity for growth and change. That every single month is an opportunity to create new versions of ourselves. It's not only true monthly, it's true every single day. It's true every single week. It's true every single month and every single year. But we get so distracted. So we use these flag posts in time to remind ourselves of the fact that we can grow and that we can change. Now, that's up to you. It's up to you how you're going to use your calendar in time. Do you want to be the individual that is just stuck in a monotonous, view of time, like the caste system, like in India, where you're born a slave, you are a slave, you can never change, or like an atheist who believes that you're nothing but a more evolved version of a baboon, right? Is that who you are? Is that how you want to relate to yourself? Or do you buy into this idea that you are an infinite spark of the divine, that you represent the power of accomplishing whatever you set your mind to, that you have the power overcoming all the circumstances that you find yourselves in? The first holiday that Jews celebrate is the month of Passover. Why? Because none of the other holidays work if you don't believe in time. The time that you have to be free. It, you're doing time when you're in jail, right? Why? Because you're stuck. Very little opportunity to do other things except for whatever it is, you are where you are. But what's so remarkable about this idea in the holidays is that you have a power within you to overcome time. How? Okay, well, you have the power of elevating time. The time itself does not define your mitziut. You define your mitziut. You define your reality. Your reality doesn't define you. You have the power of defining your reality. And it has to do with how you relate to yourself in your mind. Are you stuck in a certain mindset, or are you willing to be free? Well, how do I become free, Rabbi? The first step of freedom is recognizing that you're in control. You're always in control. You're in control of your destiny. You're in control of your reality. You could choose to allow your circumstances to enslave you. Then you want to be a slave. That's your prerogative. But if you're someone who is truly looking for freedom, you have to ask yourselves, what traits are holding you back from achieving your greatness? What is it that is blocking you from becoming something bigger and more? How are you working towards achieving your unique mission in this world? If you're not asking those questions, my friends, you ain't going anywhere. And all of this, the whole holiday, the idea of Pesach, of no bread, the idea of Pesach, of getting rid of chametz, the idea of burning the chametz, the idea of signing contracts. We want to get rid of all these things. Having a seder where we're organizing our night, we're organizing our time, is a leil shimurim, a night of guardianship, a night where we get protection. Why? Because we're getting focusing, narrowing down on this idea that there is a God in the universe, and He created the world with purpose, He created the world with meaning. And now all you have to do, my friends, is tap into all of that. You have to tap into this unique power of greatness. It's waiting there for you. It's waiting for you to go ahead and come out and become free. I could go ahead and take you out of jail, but if you're still stuck in prison in your mind mentally, you can never be free. What are the steps you need to take? Number one is believing that you are free, believing that you can change, believing your past doesn't define your future. Step number two is having a vision of what you want your future to look like, and then be relentless about making that your new reality. If all you're doing is repeating the same thing over and over again, you're just living in the world of the sun. That's not our reality. We live in the world of the moon. The moon is constantly changing. It's constantly different. Why? Because it has the recognition that it has none of its own light. You see, the sun believes that it is everything. It is the source of power, the source of light. The moon understands clearly that it has no light. All it is a reflection. And in reality, the sun is also just a reflection. And you and I are a reflection of the divine, but we choose how and where we want to aim our mirror. Do we want to channel our mirror towards the repetitive nature of reality, the mundane, or do we want to channel our light to the infinite source of all blessing? That, my friends, is up to you. No one can help you move out of that reality except for yourself. So you have the power to use this unique holiday of overcoming all adversity, of overcoming all the things that are holding you back. How are you going to tap into it? How are you going to use this holiday to overcome all those things? Well, number one is you got to prepare for it. Spend some time going through the Haggadah. How are you telling the story? How are you going ahead and share those ideas with your family? How are you going to make this year different than last year? How are you going to upgrade your understanding of the world around you? Because you can't be free if you're doing the same thing as you did last year, especially if last year was okay and you want this year to be much better. So what is Pesach in a nutshell? Pesach is a holiday of complete liberation. Why are we doing it over and over again? It's the same reason why we celebrate Shabbat over and over again, right? Some ask, why don't we have Shabbat once a year? It's just that one day a year where we remember that God created the world in 7 days. Why do I got to do it every single week? Why do I have Passover once a year? Why do I have to have Shabbat every single week? You know what the answer is? That certain things we need to do over and over again because you and I are going to forget. If we didn't have a Shabbat every single week, we would lose ourselves to the nature of time. We would lose ourselves to the monotony of time, and we get stuck in a loop, and we'd always be doing the same thing over and over again. But what Shabbat offers to us is the recognition that every single week can be different. What Rosh Chodesh represents is that every single month can be different. And what Pesach reminds us is that we need to spend time to safeguard our freedom. And that just like our ancestors were enslaved way back when, we, my friends, are still enslaved today. And if we're not willing to fight for our freedoms, for our intellectual and spiritual freedoms, you will remain a slave forever, God forbid. Wishing you a chag of clarity, a chag of true freedom, of inner freedom. And may God bless you with the understanding that you are an infinite source of potential. May you channel your unique mirror, your reflection to reflect godliness in this world. May you recognize that you are just a servant of time, a servant of the Lord, a servant of your ability to accomplish greatness. If you don't have those things, you'll always remain mediocre, and no one here wants mediocrity. Everyone here definitely wants excellence. May you be blessed to see that all of your efforts, all of your focus come to fruition, and may we always remain a source of happiness, of simcha, of happiness, health, and success in all the things that we do. Wishing you all a Chag Kasher V'Sameach. I'm not going to see you for this Friday. I won't be here. And I won't be, there's no classes, I believe, next week. So God willing, we'll pick up in a couple of weeks. Wishing you again a Chag Kasher V'Sameach. Tiskul Shanim Rabot V'Niyimot. We should only see Nachat. Have a great day, everybody. Lots of love.
Thank you, Rabbi. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.